Everyone wants to be a trader, but almost no one wants to hear the truth. Because the truth? It doesn't glitter. It doesn't promise Lambos. It doesn't sell. Here's the lie most new traders believe, the one that kills their account before they even place a trade. If I just find the right strategy, I'll win. They think trading is about high win rates, crystal clear indicators, magic confirmation signals that scream, buy now and sell here. They think they'll outsmart the market with a few hours of YouTube tutorials and a MetaTrader download. But let me tell you something. That lie is the first trade they lose. They just don't know it yet. Most new traders enter the market with the mindset of a treasure hunter. They're convinced there's some secret X on the chart, and if they can just find it, they'll strike gold. They don't realize they've stepped into a war zone. And worse, they've walked in unarmed. Imagine this. A beginner sits at their desk with a $100 account. They've watched a video that promised 90% win rates with a scalping strategy. RSI below 30? Buy RSI above 70? Sounds simple, right? The first trade hits, green, their heart races. I've cracked it. The second one? Boom, another win. The third trade reverses. Stop loss hit. They move it. Hit again. Now they're sweating. Fourth trade, they double size to recover. Slippage, loss, panic, tilt. By the fifth trade, they've blown half their account, and they don't know what happened. Let me break it to you. The strategy didn't fail. The mindset did. You see, the biggest lie isn't just that a perfect system exists. It's the belief that a system will save you. But trading doesn't reward the best strategy. It rewards the most emotionally disciplined operator behind that strategy. You can hand two traders the exact same setup. One will execute it with patience, risk control, and detachment. The other will fumble it with fear, greed, and hesitation. And that's the difference between building a $100 account slowly over time or blowing it in an afternoon of hope and revenge. Want proof? Look at professional traders, the ones who've lasted decades. They don't talk about win rates. They don't chase holy grails. They talk about probabilities, risk, process. They treat the market like a casino they own, not a roulette table they bet on. They know the real game isn't external. It's internal. So if you're walking into trading thinking, once I find the right strategy, I'll succeed, you're already setting yourself up to fail. Because here's the hidden key. The edge was never the strategy. The edge was how you executed under pressure. That's what separates the survivors from the statistics. And that brings us to the next realization. If strategy isn't the problem, then what is? Let's dig deeper into the real source of losses. The mirror traders refuse to look into, because the next lie, it lives inside you. They laugh at the $100 trader. They say, you can't do anything with that. You need real capital. But that statement alone exposes their mindset and their fragility. Because what they don't realize is this. A $100 account doesn't limit you. It exposes you. It humbles you. It trains you. The trader who can manage $100 with discipline, patience, and structure is already more dangerous than the one throwing around $10,000 with ego and no edge. Let me tell you a story. Two traders start the same day. Trader A funds $10,000 into a flashy new broker. He's got 10 tabs open, 3 monitors, gold chains in his profile pic. Trader B starts with $100, one chart. No indicators, just price action, risk rules, and a written plan. In the first week, Trader A makes $1,200. He's hyped. He increases position size, adds leverage. By week 2, he loses $3,400. And now revenge is driving the wheel. By the end of month 1, he's down to $2,100. Trader B, he makes $80 the first week. Laughable, right? But he journals every trade. He sticks to 1% risk. No revenge, no gambling. By the end of month 1, he's up $18, but more importantly, he hasn't broken a single rule. And that makes him dangerous. See, most people treat a $100 account like a scratch card, a desperate gamble for a big return. But the smart ones, they treat it like a training dojo. The $100 account teaches lessons the $10,000 account hides with false confidence. It teaches restraint. It teaches humility. It forces you to understand that one bad decision could wipe out 20% of your equity. That pressure either sharpens you or exposes you. Think of a fighter pilot in training. They don't start in a real jet doing barrel rolls at Mach speed. They start in simulators, with checklists, with discipline. Why? Because chaos doesn't forgive recklessness, and neither does the market. So when you're handed $100, don't roll your eyes. You're holding a mirror. Here's another truth. If you can't double $100 over time with consistency, you will not survive with $10,000. You'll just blow it faster. Because the problems weren't in the size of the account. They were in the lack of structure behind the trader. You don't become consistent with more capital. You become consistent with more control, and that control starts with how you treat small money. Let's talk psychology. A small account tests your patience like nothing else. When $5 wins feel pointless. When commissions eat your profit. When the chart moves in your direction, but your size is so small it barely moves the needle. That's where traders snap. They overtrade. They break rules. They revenge trade just to make it exciting. And this is where the true lesson hits. If you only feel validated when the profits are big, you're not trading. You're chasing dopamine. That behavior, unchecked, will sabotage any account, big or small. Professional traders understand something that beginners don't. The goal isn't to grow $100 into $100,000 in 3 months. The goal is to use that $100 to build habits, data, discipline, and emotional awareness. That's the real return. And once those foundations are in place, scaling is just a function of math. But without those foundations, scaling just amplifies the chaos. Consider Richard Dennis again, the founder of the Turtle Traders. He believed anyone could be taught the system, but only a few could master the discipline. And that's why he tested people first. Not by how much they could make, but how well they could follow the process. You don't need $10,000 to follow a process. You need focus. You need structure. You need to treat $100 with the same seriousness as $100,000. Because here's the brutal truth. If you disrespect small money, you'll never be trusted with big money. Not by the market. Not by your future self. So let's reframe it. Don't ask, how do I flip $100 into millions? Ask, how do I use this $100 to build the mindset of a millionaire trader? Because that's the hidden key. It's not about what you trade with. It's about what you become while trading it. And now that we understand the power of starting small, let's take it further. What happens when two traders face the same trade, but walk away with completely different results? It's not the chart. It's not the setup. It's who they are when they pull the trigger. Let's break that down next. Two traders, same starting capital, same market, same tools. One ends up bitter, broke, and blaming the system. The other builds consistency, control, and eventually capital. What happened? Let's break it down. Trader A wakes up fueled by hope and adrenaline. He's watched 5 YouTube scalping videos. His Instagram feed is full of Lambos and lifestyle screenshots. He deposits 100, and he's already dreaming about flipping it to 5 figures. He opens his first trade. No journal, no plan, just vibes. It moves in his direction, green. He adds size. Then it pulls back. He panics. Closes the trade for a loss. Immediately re-enters. Another loss. Now he's tilted. A few hours later, half the account is gone. He doesn't stop. He doesn't reflect. He doubles down. By the end of the day, his $100 is 12 by 67, and his confidence? Shattered. But Trader A doesn't learn. He just repeats the cycle until there's nothing left. Now meet Trader B, same $100, same charts, but a different mindset. Before his first trade, he builds a simple system. Not perfect, but tested. He writes down his rules. Entry, stop loss, target, and risk per trade 1%. He journals everything. His first trade wins 125s. It feels boring. His second trade loses 0.87. He shrugs. Follows the plan. By the end of the week, he's only up $3, but more importantly, he hasn't broken a single rule. The account is alive. But more critically, so is his discipline. Same capital. 2 entirely different outcomes. Why? Because Trader A is chasing money. Trader B is building a system. One is gambling. The other is becoming a professional. Let me give you a real-world parallel. Picture 2 poker players sitting at the same table. Same cards, same dealer, same chips. Player A plays every hand. He bets big on gut feelings. He chases the rush. Player B, he folds 80% of the time, waits for the right setups. When he plays with confidence, not emotion. Who survives longer? More importantly, who walks away with the edge? Trading is no different. Your tools don't decide your fate. Your psychology does. Back to Trader A. After blowing his account, he searches for another strategy. Maybe a new indicator. Maybe scalping is dead. Maybe he needs to swing trade. He convinces himself the problem was external. It never crosses his mind that he was the variable, that his need for speed, validation, and fast profits created a ticking bomb. Trader B, on the other hand, he's still trading 1% risk, still journaling, some weeks red, some green. But over time, he notices patterns. He refines his edge. He develops muscle memory for patience. Eventually, he grows the $100 to $140, then $160, still small, but stable. Now, when someone hands him $1,000, he doesn't flinch, because the habits are already in place. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Trader A thinks he has a strategy problem. Trader B knows he has a self-mastery problem, and solves it every day. And that's the dividing line between failure and freedom in trading. Want another example? Let's go back in time. Nick Leeson was once a rising star at Barings Bank. He had the tools, the desk, and the reputation. But when losses came, instead of taking them, he hid them. Doubled down, lied, gambled. Eventually, he collapsed an entire 230-year-old bank. Why? Because he was Trader A with institutional access. His tools were advanced, but his mindset was broken. Now contrast that with Richard Dennis and his turtle traders. He handed total rookies rules and capital. Some failed, but the ones who trusted the process thrived. Not because they were market geniuses, but because they were Trader B in mindset. Disciplined, detached, focused. So ask yourself, when you take a loss, do you chase? When you're up, do you overtrade? Do you follow a plan or do you follow impulses? Because in every moment you're choosing which trader to become. And here's the paradox. The strategy isn't the edge, you are. If you're consistent, your edge will shine through even in rough markets. If you're impulsive, you'll sabotage even the best setups. The same account, the same trades, two futures. So which trader are you right now? And more importantly, which trader are you becoming? The answer isn't in your P&L, it's in your behavior. Now that we've seen how psychology shapes every outcome, let's zoom out and look at some of the most famous examples in history. Traders who won, lost, and made their legacy not through tools, but through mindset. Because your story is still being written, and what comes next depends entirely on what you do next. History doesn't just tell stories. It leaves clues. Clues about who survives in the market and who gets eaten alive. And if you're smart, you'll study those clues, because they reveal the truth most traders ignore. Let's start with one of the most famous experiments in trading history. It's 1983. Chicago's trading pits are loud, chaotic, and filled with men who think you're either born to trade or you're not. Richard Dennis, a legend in the pits, disagreed. He believed trading success wasn't a gift, wasn't in your DNA. It was a skill, a discipline, a process. So he made a bet with his partner, William Eckhart. Dennis said, "I can take complete beginners and turn them into profitable traders if I teach them the rules." Eckhart said, "Impossible. Talent can't be taught." So Dennis recruited a group of everyday people, bartenders, security guards, teachers, and even a game designer. No trading experience, no Wall Street background. He called them the Turtles. He gave them a system, rules for entries, exits, and risk. Simple, mechanical, no magic indicators, just process. And then he gave them capital. Within a few years, many of those turtles turned Dennis's money into millions. What does this prove? It proves the market doesn't care if you're special. It cares if you can follow a process when money and emotion collide. Because some turtles thrived, others failed, even though they had the exact same rules. Why? Not because the system stopped working, but because discipline broke down. Ego crept in, fear took over. Same rules, same teacher, different outcomes. Sound familiar? Now contrast this with Jesse Livermore, the boy plunger, one of the greatest traders of the early 20th century. He made and lost several fortunes, sometimes in the same decade. Livermore understood the market like few others, but even he admitted that his biggest losses didn't come from bad analysis. They came from breaking his own rules. He famously said, "It was never my thinking that made the big money for me. It was always my sitting." In other words, patience and discipline, not prediction. Yet even Livermore, with all his brilliance, couldn't always master his emotions. He'd overleverage. He'd chase. He'd double down. And those lapses cost him everything. The lesson? Knowledge alone isn't enough. Without self-control, even a genius can implode. Then there's George Soros, one of the most successful traders in history. People remember him for breaking the Bank of England in 1992, $1 billion profit in a single trade. What they don't talk about is what made him truly great. It wasn't just spotting opportunities. It was his humility. Soros was famous for cutting losses quickly. He never married his trades. He once said, "It's not whether you're right or wrong, but how much you make when you're right and how much you lose when you're wrong." That mindset, cutting losses, letting winners run, is discipline in action. He didn't see losses as personal. He saw them as tuition. That's why he lasted decades. That's why he scaled up. That's why he's still remembered while others disappeared. And on the other side of history? Nick Leeson. Barings Bank, 230 years old. The oldest merchant bank in Britain, destroyed by one man. Leeson started as a low-level trader. He made small, consistent profits. He gained trust. Then he started hiding losses. He doubled down. He gambled bigger and bigger, trying to win it back. By the time it was discovered, he had lost $1.3 billion. Barings Bank collapsed. A 230-year legacy gone. Leeson wasn't uneducated. He wasn't inexperienced. He simply lacked the one trait the market demands above all else: emotional control. Put these stories side by side. The turtles prove discipline can be taught. Livermore proves brilliance without discipline is a ticking bomb. Soros proves humility keeps you alive. Lesson proves ego can destroy everything you touch. Different eras, different markets, same lesson. The market rewards control. The market punishes ego. Now here's why this matters to you, especially if you're starting with $100. You're not just building a balance. You're building habits. Right now, every trade you take is training your brain. You're either reinforcing patience, risk management, and detachment, or you're reinforcing impulsiveness, revenge, and hope. The account size doesn't decide your future. The habits you build today do. Because once you scale up, those habits don't disappear. They amplify. Trader A with bad habits at $100 becomes Nick Leeson at $10 million. Trader B with discipline at $100 becomes Soros with scale. And here's the kicker. There's nothing new about this. Every generation of traders discovers the same truth. They just discover it too late after the damage is done. You have a chance to learn it now. To understand that your $100 account isn't a disadvantage. It's your training ground, your boot camp, your turtle trader experiment. The question is whether you'll treat it that way, or treat it like a lottery ticket, because the market is always watching, not your account size, not your indicators. It's watching how you behave under pressure. And in that moment, history isn't just a story, it's a warning. The same warning it's been giving for over a century. Control yourself, or the market will do it for you. And that leads us to the next hard truth. Once you recognize the market as your mirror, you begin to see your emotions on the chart itself. Fear, greed, impatience, ego. That's what we're about to uncover next. The emotional roller coaster that drains accounts faster than any bad. When you're trading with a small account, every tick feels like a punch. $5 lost doesn't sound like much to someone with a big account. But when your balance is $100, that's 5% gone in seconds. The loss isn't just financial, it's psychological. It hits your self-worth. It triggers panic. It whispers, you can't afford to be wrong. And that's the trap, because when money feels scarce, traders act like gamblers. They stop following plans, they start chasing, they try to make the market pay them back. And the market never does. Picture this. A new trader starts with $100. They've read about risk management, but 1% risk per trade feels pointless. $1? That's nothing. They want to make it worth it. So they risk $10 instead. 10% of their account on one position. The first trade wins. They're hooked. If I can make $10 once, I can do it again. The second trade loses. Suddenly they're back to break even. The third trade loses again. Down $10 overall. Now the voice inside them changes. I've got to win it back. This is how overtrading is born, not from lack of knowledge, but from emotional pressure. Think of a casino gambler. He wins a few hands. His confidence grows. He ups the bet, loses, doubles down, loses again. Suddenly he's chasing, not playing. That's exactly how small account traders behave, because they're not thinking in probabilities. They're thinking in survival, and survival thinking turns the market into an enemy. Professional traders know something beginners don't. Small accounts aren't about big profits. They're about habit building. They know a 1% risk feels small, but that's the point. It forces patience. It forces boredom. It forces you to stop looking at the chart as a slot machine and start treating it as a business. Most beginners can't handle the boredom, so they force trades that don't exist. They convince themselves they see setups everywhere. They buy every breakout and sell every dip, hoping for action, and the action destroys them. Let's revisit our two archetypes. Trader A starts with $100. He wants excitement. He risks $20 on the first trade, loses, risks $30 on the second, loses again. He tells himself, one good trade and I'm back. He keeps clicking, bleeding out his account in a flurry of hope. Trader B also starts with $100. He risks $1 per trade. It feels pointless. He hates how slow it feels. But he keeps journaling. He keeps waiting. He takes only valid setups. 1 month later, Trader A is gone. Trader B is still alive. And being alive is the first edge. Why is overtrading so seductive? Because your brain hates inaction. Human beings evolved to hunt. When you're not doing something, your nervous system feels threatened. Sitting on your hands while the market moves feels like missing food, missing shelter. And the smaller your account, the louder that instinct becomes. Every move against you feels like a personal attack. Every winning trade you didn't take feels like a missed lifeline. So you click, you chase, you gamble, and slowly your account bleeds out from 1,000 tiny cuts. Think about soldiers in training. They're drilled on fire discipline, not just how to shoot, but when not to shoot. Because in chaos, the undisciplined waste ammunition and reveal their position. The disciplined wait. They conserve. They act only when necessary. Trading is no different. Small accounts are your training ground for fire discipline. If you can resist the urge to trade every flicker of the chart, you're already ahead of 90% of traders. Here's the deeper psychology. Overtrading is not about wanting more money. It's about wanting relief. Relief from fear. Relief from boredom. Relief from feeling powerless. When you lose, revenge trading is your brain's way of clawing back control. When you're bored, forcing trades is your way of chasing excitement. But both behaviors kill your edge. So how do you avoid this trap? By reframing your small account from a money machine to a discipline machine. Make the goal not to grow $100 into $10,000 in 3 months, but to execute 50 trades exactly according to your plan, no matter how small the profit. Track your rules, not your dollars. Celebrate boring wins. Treat each loss as tuition. Cheap lessons in emotional control. Because that's what your $100 is buying you. Awareness. This is how professionals think. George Soros once said, "It's not whether you're right or wrong that matters, but how much you lose when you're wrong, and how much you make when you're right." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, "Win as much as you can, as fast as you can." He said, "Control the downside." A small account is the perfect place to learn that. The market doesn't care how much you have. It cares how you handle it. A $100 account will magnify your weaknesses. If you gamble, it will punish you. If you're patient, it will train you. Most small account traders overtrade because they think small capital means small stakes. In reality, it's the opposite. Small capital means you can't afford to make mistakes, and that pressure is either going to break you or forge you. So the next time you feel that itch to make it back on your $100 account, stop, breathe, ask yourself, am I following my process or am I chasing relief? Because the habit you practice now is the habit you'll scale later. If you can't manage $100 with patience, you won't manage $10,000. You'll just lose it faster. But if you can master your impulses now, if you can treat small money like big money, you're already on the path to being the rare trader who survives. And that brings us to the next, less glamorous but even more powerful truth. Why discipline beats every strategy, and how boring consistency is the hidden engine behind every long-term winner. Everyone dreams of starting big. A $50,000 trading account, a 6-monitor setup, a fast track to financial freedom. But what if I told you That starting small, painfully small, is actually your unfair advantage? That the $100 account you're ashamed of could be the very thing that makes you a millionaire trader? It's true. But only if you see it the right way. Let's start with a simple truth. Big money hides mistakes. Small money exposes them. A trader with a $100,000 account can overtrade, ignore stop losses and revenge trade, and still survive a while. But a trader with a $100 account? One mistake and it's gone. Sounds brutal, but it's a gift in disguise. Because small accounts force you to respect the process. You can't afford to be reckless. You can't afford to ignore risk. You can't afford to trade emotionally. That pressure shapes discipline. It builds the habits that big account traders often skip. And that's why so many of them blow up when they scale. Let's take two traders. Same dream, different starting point. Trader A starts with $10,000. He feels powerful, confident. He places oversized trades because he can afford the risk. When he wins, he adds size. When he loses, he doubles down to make it back. He's not trading, he's gambling. But the size of his account masks it. Trader B starts with $100. There's no room for ego. Every trade matters. He journals, backtests, reviews. He doesn't just learn the strategy, he learns himself. Who survives longer? Not the one with more capital, the one with more control. Here's the part most people miss. A small account makes failure cheap. In the early days, you will make mistakes. Bad entries, missed stops, emotional exits. It's inevitable. But would you rather make those mistakes with $100 or $10,000? Every mistake with a small account is tuition. Low cost, high value. That's not a weakness, that's a classroom. Think of athletes. You don't put a rookie fighter into a championship match on day one. They train, they spar, they fight in smaller circuits. Not because they're not good enough, but because they need to build muscle memory under pressure. The market is no different. The $100 account is your sparring ring, your safe zone to build instincts before the real fight begins. It teaches you to breathe when the market moves against you, to sit out when there's no setup, to respect your rules more than your emotions. That skill? It doesn't show up on your balance sheet, but it shows up everywhere else. And here's something no one talks about. Small amounts give you mental freedom. When you're trading $100, you're not crushed by the weight of expectation. You're not trying to pay rent. You're not desperately chasing profits. You're free to focus on the one thing that actually matters: execution. Did I follow my rules? Did I control my risk? Did I trade like a professional? That mindset shift is priceless. Because the traders who treat a $100 account like it's $100,000 are the ones who get to actually trade $100,000 one day. But the ones who treat a $100,000 account like it's a game, they're gone by the end of the year. Let's talk about ego for a second. Nothing exposes your ego like a small account. You want to prove yourself. You want to scale fast. You feel like you're behind. So you chase, you overleverage, you revenge trade, and then the account is gone. Again, but can you tame your ego at $100? What if you could stop measuring your worth by profit and start measuring it by discipline? You win the game before it even starts. Because the real edge isn't your setup, it's your self-awareness. Remember, George Soros didn't start with $1 billion. Neither did Livermore. Neither did the Turtles. They all started small, but they treated the process big. They didn't chase performance. They built habits. They respected the process. They trusted the math. And when did the capital come? They were ready, because they had already mastered the part that mattered most, themselves. So if you're sitting there thinking, I only have $100, what's the point? Let me tell you the point. The point is, you're holding the single greatest gift a new trader can have, the chance to build habits, mindset, and discipline without the burden of money clouding your judgment. Big accounts are noisy. Small accounts are honest. They don't let you lie to yourself. They don't let you hide behind lucky trades. They force you to earn every dollar the hard way. And that right there is how wealth is built. Slow, intentional, professional. So the next time you're tempted to say, I wish I had more capital, flip the script. Say instead, I'm lucky I get to train while the stakes are low. Because if you do this right, that $100 account won't stay small forever. And when the time comes to size up, you'll be ready. Not just financially, but mentally. That's the hidden edge of starting small. Now let's talk about what happens when you Finally start compounding discipline, and how consistent execution builds the kind of wealth most traders only dream about. The casino doesn't care who wins tonight. It doesn't flinch when one player hits the jackpot, because the house knows the math. It plays the long game, and in the long game, the house always wins. This is the mindset of professional traders. They don't think like players at the table. They think like the casino that built the table. But most $100 traders? They're stuck thinking like gamblers. They ask, how can I double this by Friday? What's the one trade that will make me rich? Wrong questions. Professionals ask, what's my edge? How many times can I repeat it without blowing up? How do I survive long enough to let the math work? Because here's the secret. You don't need to win all the time. You just need to win enough. With control. With consistency. Let's break that down. Say you have a small edge. A strategy that wins 50% of the time with a 2.1 reward to risk ratio. That means you risk 10 to make $20. If you take 100 trades, you expect to win 50 and lose 50. So that's 50 wins x 20, $1,000. 50 losses x $10 or 500, that's a $500 profit. Same setup, same edge, same risk. Played like a machine. That's how casinos think. They don't care about the outcome of one hand of blackjack. They care about running millions of hands, because every hand pushes the math in their favor. Now let's apply that to your $100 account. Say you risk 1% per trade, that's $1 per trade. You run the same edge, same setup. It feels slow, almost laughably small. But here's what most beginners miss. It's not about the dollar amount. It's about the habit. You're teaching your brain how to follow a plan. You're learning emotional detachment. You're becoming the house. The same math that worked with a $1 risk per trade, it works exactly the same when you scale to $10, $100, or $1,000. The only variable is, can you scale your discipline along with your capital? Most can't. They change the rules when the money gets bigger. They break their system when they feel pressure. They try to get rich faster, and they lose everything. Here's the real mind bender. A 2% edge over 500 trades can 10x your account. But it's boring. It's slow. It's invisible to the impatient. Which is why most traders never experience it. They quit. They jump strategies. They risk too much too soon. Meanwhile, the disciplined trader stays consistent, slow, and eventually unstoppable. Let's go back to the casino. The house doesn't win because it has better cards. It wins because it has a process. It controls risk. It never bets the entire bankroll on one game. Survives every streak. And it lets the edge play out. That's what you need to copy. Not some guru's secret strategy. Not a flashy YouTuber's indicator. But the mentality of a risk-controlled, edge-based system scaled through time. Take poker legend Annie Duke. She built her career on this mindset. She said, in poker and in life, you can do everything right and still lose. That doesn't mean you change your strategy. It means you stay the course. That's the game you're in. It's not about the next trade. It's about the next 100, the next 1,000. Think of compounding like drops in a bucket. Each trade is one drop. You don't notice much at first, but keep dripping, and the bucket starts to fill. Eventually it overflows. That's how $100 becomes $500, then $1,000, then $10,000. Not through one lucky break, but through repetition of one small edge, over and over again. So what's the practical takeaway? Stop focusing on the outcome of this trade. Start thinking like a casino. Build a system. Know your edge. Control your risk. Survive. Repeat. You don't need 100 different strategies. You need one edge with discipline behind it, applied 1,000 times. Let the math do the heavy lifting. And when the numbers tempt you to jump the gun, when you feel like scaling too soon, pushing too hard, risking too much, remember, casinos never go all in on one hand. They grind, they survive every bad night, and they always come out on top in the end. That's your job now, to become the house, to think in bets, to respect the math, to build wealth not with noise but with silence, not with hype but with habit, because the trader who scales like a casino doesn't chase riches. They build them, slowly, steadily, unemotionally. And that leads us to the final transformation. It's not just about your account anymore. It's about your identity, who you've become, and what you're capable of sustaining for the long run. There's a moment in every trader's journey where the charts stop being the problem, It's not the entry. It's not the exit. It's not the strategy. It's the identity behind the trade. Because you can't trade like a professional if you still think like a hustler, and most traders don't realize they're doing it. They chase profits. They measure progress in dollars. They wake up every morning asking, how much can I make today? That mindset? It's the mindset of a gambler, not an operator. And until it changes, nothing else will. Let's break this down. When you're in hustler mode, everything is emotional. Every red candle feels like a personal attack. Every green candle feels like validation. You celebrate wins like lottery tickets. You mourn losses like heartbreak. You obsess over the outcome and completely ignore the process. But millionaire traders? They don't operate in that world. They don't chase dopamine. They chase probability. They think in systems. They think in risk units. They think in decades, not days. That's the difference. One is trying to get rich fast. The other is trying to stay in the game long enough to let the math do the work. Imagine two pilots. One is flying a private jet with friends. He's drinking champagne, flying low, and pulling stunts for fun. The other is a commercial airline captain. Calm, focused, checklist in hand. Systems running. Crew disciplined. Who would you trust in a storm? Exactly. Hustler traders fly by emotion. Operators fly by discipline. And in the storm that is the market, discipline is your only parachute. Let me give you an example from history. Richard Dennis, the father of the turtle traders, didn't just teach strategies. He taught identity. His students didn't become pros because of a magical setup. They became pros because they were trained to think like risk managers. Every trade had a fixed position size. Every loss was controlled. No emotions. No guesses. Just execution. They weren't gamblers. They were statistical machines. And that's what you need to become. But let's be real. Shifting your identity is hard. Because trading attracts hustlers. It promises fast money, quick flips, freedom. And if you come from a background of survival, if you've been grinding, hustling, doing whatever it takes to make ends meet, this game feels like the ultimate shortcut. But it's not. It's a mirror. And what if you bring hustler energy to a professional environment? You get punished fast. Now here's the turning point. Professional traders don't ask, did I win? They ask, did I follow my plan? They don't judge a trade by profit or loss. They judge it by execution quality, because they know deeply that a single trade means nothing. What matters is the pattern you repeat. And what if that pattern is based on emotion, hope, and ego? You're done before you start. Let's talk about language for a second. Words reveal identity. Hustlers say, I just need one good trade. I'll go all in on this breakout. I hope this works. Operators say, what's the probability? Is this setup aligned with my system? What's the R multiple? See the difference? One is reactive. The other is strategic. One is chasing. The other is waiting. This isn't about sounding smart. It's about thinking like a pro. Because pros don't just survive, they compound. And here's the kicker. Professional identity isn't based on account size. You can be a hustler with $100,000. You can be a pro with $100. It's not about the money. It's about how you treat the game. Do you journal? Do you risk 1% or less per trade? Do you know your edge? Do you stick to your rules even when it hurts? If yes, you're already on the path. If not, no amount of capital will save you. So how do you make the shift? You stop trying to make money, and you start trying to make good decisions. You stop defining success by results, and you start defining it by reliability. You stop chasing high-win setups, and you start embracing controlled losses as part of the process. You don't need adrenaline. You need clarity. You don't need hype. You need humility. You don't need more trades. You need more patience. Remember this: gamblers chase action. Professionals chase consistency. Hustlers look for the big win. Operators look for repeatable edges. The market doesn't care who you think you are. It only rewards what you consistently do. And if you want to build a millionaire account from $100, you don't do it by chasing plays. You do it by becoming the kind of person who executes like it's already $1 million account. Because once you operate like that, the rest is just math. Now let's wrap this all up. Because in the end, it's not about money at all. It's about the mindset that prints money while others burn out. Everyone's searching for the secret. They want the best broker, the highest win rate setup, the cleanest indicators, the algorithm that never fails. They scroll forums, watch hours of YouTube, hop from strategy to strategy, tool to tool, platform to platform, and yet they keep losing. Not because the strategy was wrong, not because the market was unfair, but because they missed the one thing that actually decides everything: themselves. You can have the best system in the world, but if you panic when price drops 1%, if you move your stop loss because you feel like it, if you jump in on impulse because you saw a green candle, you're the problem, not the market, not the tool, you. And here's the hard truth most traders never want to hear: you are your final barrier. Think of a pilot flying into turbulence. The plane shakes, passengers scream, the sky turns violent. But the pilot? Calm, focused, steady. Why? Because they trust their training. They don't grab the wheel out of fear. They follow the system. They rely on discipline, not emotion. Traders need to become that pilot. But most are flying blind, reacting emotionally to every bump in the market. Crashing not because of the weather, but because of how they respond to it. Let's go deeper. Every time you enter a trade, your psychology steps into the ring. Fear, greed, doubt, ego. They all want control. Fear says, close early, take what you can. Greed whispers, hold longer. Maybe this one doubles. Ego shouts, you can't be wrong, move the stop. Prove you're right. And if you listen to those voices long enough, your edge disappears. Your account bleeds, and you never know why it happened. You blame the market, but it was never the chart. It was always you. Let's take a case study. Nick Leeson. He brought down Barings Bank, a 200-year-old institution. Why? Not because of a bad strategy, not because of a volatile market, but because he hid losses. He broke rules. He let ego take the wheel. It wasn't poor analysis. It was poor discipline. Now compare that to George Soros. In 1992, he broke the Bank of England, but not because he was reckless. He saw his edge, made the play, and if he had been wrong, he would have walked away. His power wasn't just in prediction. It was in knowing when to step back. Emotional control. That's the difference. Not tools, not size, not access. Mastery of self. Here's the paradox. Most traders think mastering the market is the goal, but mastering yourself is the only path that gets you there. Because the market, it's just a mirror. It reflects your greed, your fear, your overconfidence, your lack of patience. Every candle is a test, every trade an exam, not of your strategy, but of your discipline. Think of a soldier on the battlefield. The environment is chaos. No one knows what's coming next. But the trained soldier doesn't react emotionally. They rely on drills, on structure, on inner calm, not instinct. Don't panic. Your trades need to come from that same place, from clarity, from the system, from self-control, because the real edge in trading is not your setup. It's yourself. So how do you build that mastery? Start with awareness. Journal every trade, but more importantly, journal what you felt. Where did fear creep in? When did ego speak up? What thoughts triggered that impulse? Next, build rules. Strict, clear, and non-negotiable. Then follow them ruthlessly, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because every time you obey discipline over emotion, you grow stronger, more stable, more dangerous in the best way. And here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, what strategy will grow my $100 account? Start asking, what version of me can grow it? Because the version of you that takes revenge trades, that version stays broken. The version of you that can sit in cash for days, wait for the right setup, manage risk, respect the stop loss. That version. That's the millionaire version. You don't need more indicators. You need more self-control, more emotional awareness, more identity work. Let's end with this. Every trader wants freedom, but freedom doesn't come from money. It comes from mastery. Because once you master you, you can sit in front of the market, calm, detached, unshaken. You no longer chase. You execute. You no longer react. You respond. You no longer gamble. You operate. And that's the hidden key. Not the next trade. Not the next system. It's you. The day you master yourself, it's the day your $100 account starts moving toward freedom. For real.